We'll go ahead and get started, and welcome to our work session tonight. So we're starting our recording now, and at this time we'll recognize our administrative team. Trevor or Bill or whoever wants to get started. And
I may interject from that, he's done the bulk of the work.
okay.
I'm gonna start with a little PowerPoint presentation here. Now, if I can get the computer to cooperate, which I hope it can. I've got to download it first. Yeah, it's not. It did not open on my first try.
Here comes the technical support.
It's nowhere on there.
Look down at the bottom.
I do not. I'm not comfortable with this computer. I'm very comfortable with my Mac.
Go up top and hit slideshow. Yeah, way up top. Up top. In the red in the middle.
There it is.
All right. Very good. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would like to present to you a plan that encompasses many of our facility needs. It involves a facility that provides support to our teachers. It had to have a name that was encompassing of all the things we intend this facility to do. And I believe it best to call it Educational Support Center. Dr. Nolte and others had input on this name. Certainly open to any suggestions you may have. I had to start somewhere, so it's a preliminary name. The goal of this facility is to create a 21st century training and support center for our amazing teachers. They have done historically a fantastic job, and we would really just like to have a first-class 21st century facility to do professional development in, have meetings in, and various other activities. In looking at this slide, what I've prepared for you is looking at all the existing properties. I tried my best to create a graphic that would show movement among 4 properties. I'll start at the top with former Hazelwood, or Old Hazelwood School, or Hazelwood Elementary, or Hazelwood Conference Center. It has many, many names. And it currently in that property are 14 EC support staff offices and a large training room. The ALC is also there, but I did not include it in this because we're going to talk about it later. What I've tried to do is, if you look at the arrows, it shows what's going to be moving toward this educational support center. Next, we have Central Haywood High School. And one of the things that we would hope to move to this educational support center would be the boardroom, which would also double as a large training facility, and our ITC. We would want to move the ITC from there to this educational support center. In looking at the Crabtree property, or old Crabtree School, child nutrition is currently housed there. Just some rough numbers there. It's about $6,000 additional a month for internet service or access out there, which is very pricey. So again, we would want to move child nutrition to the educational support center. Then looking at central office, our current building, the old hospital, again, has many names. We would like to move the offices. We have training and meeting rooms there, as well as room for record storage, many historical records, transcripts that we would need space for. And again, that would move to the educational support center. All combined, if you look at the bottom there, you would have training rooms, boardroom, the ITC, child nutrition, and offices, both for current central office staff, as well as EC support staff, human resources, all types of support, hence the name, Educational Support Center. So the next slides will be broken down by facility and what's happening at those facilities. And we'll start with Central Haywood High School. So the first thing we would want to do, or what I would propose, is converting the current boardroom, this room, which was formerly a gym, converting it back to a gym for Central Haywood High School. That creates a savings and helps us avoid building back in the old footprint of the former Clyde Gym, which was in the floodplain. It also places the gym on the same campus, on the same side of the road, where it's more readily accessible to Central Haywood High School students, and as you'll see here in just a minute, the Adult Learning Center students as well. So we would also move the ITC to the Educational Support Center, as named earlier. So that vacates the top floor, and it also vacates this building. That move would facilitate moving the ALC to the vacated ITC space here at Central Haywood High School. Next, we would move 2 training rooms, the boardroom, to the Educational Support Center in total. Any questions on that? I know that's a lot of swapping and moving, but I wanted to.
I know right now you're just doing basically sort of concepts, but have you sort of studied how many training rooms, like breakout rooms, you might need in this new?
Yes.
Like smaller rooms, like for different subcommittees and stuff to meet and things like that?
That'll be, for simplicity of the presentation, it's just called training rooms, but we're aware we have one small training room. We know that this would be a medium-sized training room, and then the training room at Hazelwood is considered a large training room. And increase those sizes because, as we all know, build it bigger than you think you'll need because you'll end up needing it.
One of the things we've talked about is we have probably the square footage that we need for training. It's just all over everywhere. So if we made sure that we maintain a space like we have at the old Hazelwood School, which could double as a boardroom, you know how our board meetings get really congested. And then we maintain these 2 training rooms, and then the training rooms we have upstairs at the central office. If we can maintain about that same amount of space, then we think we'll be okay. And people will go to one place, and they'll know where it is. And so that's some of the conversation that we have. In terms of just trying to be, this could be costly, but just trying to be efficient and, not build in the floodplain, get out of this building that costs a lot of money, get out of that building that costs a lot of money.
Are we allowed to build back over there, just raising the gym up, or?
That is a possibility. Of course, costs spiral upwards.
Very expensive once you go back.
And I have rough numbers. Again, I'm not comfortable yet releasing numbers, but I can tell you that converting this would be a huge savings.
A lot cheaper.
And you'll see square footage requirements later, and just what you ask is taken into consideration when we talk about those square footage requirements.
Perfect, thank you.
Can the ALC be moved without tech support being moved?
There wouldn't be space.
There's not enough space?
There wouldn't be space.
Okay.
And really, tech support probably does not need to be in this building over here because of the possibility of flooding that we had. Because if, they have to monitor the river and, if it does look like it's gonna flood, they have to move, servers and different things. So it'd be better if it was sort of away from the river, I would feel like.
That's correct. That's correct.
And there's a space issue. I mean, if this is a gym, which we believe it should be, and of course, the final plan is yours. And we want you to take this and tell us what to do with it that we've missed. But if you make this a gym, which they desperately need, and you don't have to build it up, then Central Haywood, the Learning Center would take up almost all of the upstairs next door. Central Haywood could probably have a class or two upstairs or office space upstairs, but I don't know that we could leave IT there.
You would-
This problem. When you're talking about this whole building becoming a gymnasium, are you talking about part of it?
No, sir, just this part, because the current classrooms would need to remain. We already have a shortage that's not accounted for at this time. We lost shop classes in the gym, and we actually need these additional spaces for classrooms, as well as the additional classrooms vacated in the upper level of Central Haywood High School.
You'd get the room behind you there,
That gives you enough.
and this, most of you have been in here when it was a gym. It goes way up, So you probably would have pretty good distance. You wouldn't be playing any ball games in here, if not official games, but you'd have plenty of room for physical education.
Just much bigger than a half-court gymnasium.
It's pretty close.
It'd be pretty close. It'd be big.
If you renovate this building, we're not gonna run into floodplain issues with the renovation, obviously, since we're leaving part of it intact.
We'll need to double check. It's our best understanding now that we can remodel what we have as long as it's occupied, And so I think as long as we're not, closing it down for a period of months, if we just come in and remodel, we'll have to double check that.
One other question, since we're talking about this property. Since you did say the classroom size, or the classrooms may be a little bit limited, is there a possibility of putting some portable classrooms over on where the gym is, since they would be up?
Well, the good news about that is if you do need to add on or create additional space, you can do it on this side of the river.
Okay. You can put it over here.
Because parking's not a necessity with the boardroom if the boardroom is moved to the new educational support center.
And the ITC's not here. You basically just have Central Haywood with a learning center and that staff. There are two staffs. One is instructional and one is more wraparound workforce people. But the traffic here is a lot less.
Okay, I advance to the next property, which is Crabtree property. And again, for simplicity's sake, it simply says move child nutrition to educational support center. It would also move to eliminate those internet costs, the repair and maintenance of an old property. And
Metal
that
building.
does, and a metal building. And that takes into account freezer and dry storage and all the things that are needed. The square footage numbers that you see later has taken that into account, and I've got it broken down item by item. Any questions on that property? That may be the simplest one we have.
We couldn't try.
Okay. Next, we have former Hazelwood Elementary, Hazelwood Conference Center. The plan for that property, and again, it's my understanding that the county may have some interest in that property to put to full use for folk moot. I do not want to speak for the county any more than I would want to speak for you, but that I have heard that from good sources from time to time. It seems to be a consistent message. And what I would propose to you for consideration is moving the ALC to Central Haywood High School, as we just finished discussing, moving the large training room that's at the end of Hazelwood Conference Center to the Educational Support Center, and then moving 14 EC support staff to the Educational Support Center. Currently in the old daycare, old elementary, again, we have lots of names for these facilities, but most commonly known as the daycare, we have 14 staff members in that building currently. And just so you know what that consists of, you're looking at occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech language specialists, all of the support specialists for our kids are currently housed in the daycare on that property. So we would move them as well to the Educational Support Center.
We would, in all likelihood, not need 14 offices. A lot of those people are in and out a lot. They go to 3 or 4 or 5 schools, serve students. You could probably put, couples, speech language people in an office, occupational physical therapists, kind of people who would be coming in and out, sharing an office. It wouldn't take 14 offices, but those people do need a home base. And putting them at school sites is not as easy as it was because we're tighter with class size reductions, especially at the elementary schools. The classes are smaller, and so we need more rooms just to stay under the class size law.
This is probably not the place to say this, but my memory's not real good anymore, so I'm gonna say it now. Initially, listening to what we talked about so far, having a centralized location is cohesive. Not only does it provide for cohesive unity, but the collaboration that can occur
Oh my.
from everybody being together has got to be of huge value to the system overall, plus shared resources.
Yes, sir.
I've called Kim 4 times today. We take paper out of our basement and send it down to the old daycare. Just little things like that.
Which requires a person and personnel hours to haul it down there and gas to haul it down there. We also do that for child nutrition, or have in the past.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. I think I did make them buy their paper this year.
Yes, Dr. Nolte made them purchase it, but it has been done in the past.
I have a quick question, and
Yes, sir.
maybe something we talk in detail later, but if we move the ALC to Central, are we gonna maintain 2 complete staffs?
No, I don't think we'll need them. I think most of the folks at the Learning Center that would come from there, they have a lot of part-time staff. And we would still need that component. One of the reasons we have that center is because kids can't do it in a 90-minute block with, 10 or 12 kids around them. But I think we'd need fewer part-time staff. I don't think over time that we would need that director. We might initially phase out kind of thing. We would need someone to manage the program, especially all the grants around job skills and money for them, daycare for them if they're learning to work. So I think you cut your administrative costs down there if you count the social work position as an administrative position, and it really is doing the job work stuff. Probably cut it in half, and then you, instead of having 3 full-time equivalents or 6 half-time people down there, you probably end up with probably maximum of 2 full-time, which is probably 4 halves, a history, a math, a science, English language arts, and then they're working with those kids who are doing credit recovery on a course that they took but didn't pass. Or we have a kid blow in here from another state and we want to graduate them, and they need 2 credits, but we're just going to try to get those online for them and those part-time staff. So you do save some staff money, probably within 18 months, maybe faster. 18 months, I'd say, a little more, a little less.
Well, is Kyle retiring this year?
Well, he's talked about that, and anytime somebody asks me about somebody retiring, I'm like, when I see the paper, then it's done, and until then, it's talk. He has talked to me about that. He has served us well, certainly, and brought us a lot of resources, and we've graduated a lot of kids, so a lot of students. So I'm not sure about his timetable, but he and I have had that conversation.
Any more questions about former Hazelwood Elementary? All right, moving to the next slide. So the next couple of slides just highlight some of the many advantages of moving forward with an educational support center. Provides for integrated instructional support services, creates needed training space for teachers and staff, maintains Central Elementary for a potential growth in student population, eliminates the need to replace the Central Haywood High School gym, allows us to completely vacate former Hazelwood, Crabtree property, and current central office, provides office space for current central office and EC support staff, reduces maintenance, repairs, and replacement costs, provides an integrated hub for training, meetings, and on-site instructional technology support, reduces the amount of breakdown and setup time for trainings and meeting, reduces the amount of travel on the part of teachers, trainers, and support staff, streamlines scheduling and allows for on-site food preparation, serves as a recruitment tool for teachers by offering a 21st century training facility.
That's huge.
Yeah, just one little example, which is not a big deal, but over time it's a big deal. Every time we have a work session or a board meeting, people leave the central office and they come down here and they get ready for that meeting. The tree goes up, the tree comes down, the nameplates come out. All those things happen. School food service brings in food, sometimes from next door, but sometimes, I think the sandwiches tonight came from Waynesville Middle. So if school food service is right there with you, there are a ton of little, I won't call them intangibles because you can put your hands on them, but there are tons of little things that really add to efficiency.
And again, that most of that travel is from Waynesville to Clyde and back. And we certainly don't want folks who are providing that food hanging around. We'd like for them to go back and get back to work. So that means 2 trips most times. The setup, back to work, leave, come, the breakdown, back to work. And that adds up over time.
Well, not just here, but for Hazelwood, when you have meetings there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it is confusing. I mean, you would never want to make a move of this size for the simple purpose of making it less confusing. But, when we have our staff development days trying to describe where everyone's going, it's former Hazelwood. Well, it's old Hazelwood School. No, it's the Hazelwood Conference Center. Is that the one in Clyde? It gets confusing.
I have to do a longitude, latitude, go by your GPS system.
Well, and the bad part is once you get them directed to the right place, they walk into a substandard place to train.
And that's
Sometimes, yeah.
Dr. Rogers, that's the big thing, being able, our teachers and staff work extremely hard, And we would love to have 21st century schools, brand new with all the bells and whistles everywhere. But an educational support center is something that every teacher can benefit, and have a 21st century place to train and visit for support and help. I feel like it's a good thing for our teachers and staff. So this slide right here, Educational Support Center, here are the specifications. So it would include training rooms. Again, I didn't break those out into, large, small, medium size, but it does take into account all of our current training space. So training rooms, ITC, child nutrition, and support staff. We would need 5 acres of usable land. In it, we would have training or meeting space in the equivalent, approximately 9,000 square feet. ITC office, lab, technology, and storage, which is what they currently have, of 10,000 square feet. And again, all of this is to facilitate instruction. Support staff space, we need 8,750 square feet. Support staff, it can be anything from HR to finance to PTs, OTs, but I speak about them on down just a little more specifically.
Vocational,
Vocational,
elementary, secondary.
elementary,
All.
secondary, very good. And then the next item, child nutrition office space. 1,000 square feet, their dry storage, cooler, and freezer comes in at 9,000 square feet. And then EC support staff space, about 5,000 square feet, which is about what they're occupying now at the old daycare. And total space needed is 42,750 square feet. So 5 acres of land and 42,750 square feet.
See the pencils going up there.
Oh, did you say $200 a square foot? I was just saying total,
Probably a little-
More than that, 2.25. That's
1.25,
more than that probably.
about 9 million.
You get varying dollar amounts, sometimes more, sometimes less. Again, I didn't include financial numbers.
Right.
Well, that's hard to determine until you really know what kind of structure you're gonna build, what kind of facade's gonna be on it, what's it gonna look like.
Trevor's got some
Arranged.
information. I'm sorry, I'm bad to interrupt. Trevor's got some information too that I think might be helpful in explaining that that's a big old number, even if it's less than that.
Yeah.
But if we don't do it, we can show some bigger numbers over time.
Over time, you're talking about doing away with a lot of maintenance, and it'll add up, I'm sure. But.
Yeah.
So we talking about doing it where the old hospital is?
We don't know.
The
Y'all
reason
gotta
we
decide
created,
that. You've gotta decide that as a board.
But there's something about we have to keep the front of the building, right?
Maybe not. It depends on whether the tax credit stuff's there, you know.
Oh, I thought
I think the land is the next. Well, I think once you all buy the concept and we get a little bit of a nod from commissioners on what you all were thinking about, and you adjust it the way you want it, then I think that you all start talking about where does it sit.
Hey, I got a question. A few months ago, we had a situation where we thought we was gonna have to replace gas tanks at the bus garage.
Yeah, we don't, yeah.
And I know we don't, but we had also considered that when this thing all got together, that whether you needed it now or later, that the bus garage might be on the same campus.
He's got it. That's good.
so if you'll look up
He's
the
got it.
Educational Support Center, other considerations in case you want it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting.
No, you're
No,
good.
you're good.
You're
You're
on the
good.
same page.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Good
beautiful.
lead in is what they say, good lead in.
Beautiful.
For maintenance and transportation, you would need 6 acres of usable land. For maintenance, you'd need 15,000 square feet. For the lawnmower shop, you would need 4,500 square feet. And for the welding and carpentry shop, 5,000 square feet. For transportation, you would also need 15,000 square feet, for a total space needed of 39,500 square feet. And I broke it out that way. I didn't, I never want to assume what you would want to do, so I separated the two. You can go with the one, you can add this, so I put this as a separate consideration.
So that, the one is 5 and this is 6 acres, so we'd need 11 if we did it all together.
Of usable land,
Yeah.
yes.
That's if you wanted to
Is
consolidate.
there a
to
reason
single
that
campus.
we need to move the I know we talked about the bus shop, but
Well,
Eventually you do get them off that methane field up there.
if that thing fails, and that's not, we don't know about it, that's not our piece of property, and we know they're working on it, if it fails, we would have to move. We would certainly be more efficient if we moved. So I think, you'd be at the mercy of how much land you could get and how much money you had and what you really felt like in talking to the county about how they feel about the life expectancy of the landfill and whether or not it's contained.
we just bought 10 acres.
I'm not sure I'm not sure it'll all fit.
That's 11 acres of usable land.
Usable land. We need usable.
Here's my,
We definitely got 5 acres of usable land.
my 2 cents on that is I think that you figure out what this is, the total ball of wax, and you add a little bit, and then you look for, and I'd hate to see mess up some good farmland or whatever, then you look for that spot. And after you look for that spot, and that includes infrastructure like roads, possibly gas, possibly, utilities and so forth, being in an accessible location. And then when you purchase that property, you start as things, you get the big design and then you build as you can until you get it completed if it's 20 years down the road before the bus garage moves or whatever. But you need to, if you don't.
Start with 11 acres.
Yeah, if you don't have the 11 or 12 or 15 acres or whatever, if you find the right, like I said, I'd hate to see some good farmland get messed up, but if you found the right farm or whatever at the right price, I just think you're not looking forward enough and making the right decision unless you make sure you've got enough room to make sure it happens and happens officially. And then as you can pay for it, you move and the land's there.
Our current footprint, the property that we're on currently at the old hospital, what's that property size up there?
I'd be afraid to say, I've heard some numbers, but I don't have an official number on that. Joe and I both have looked at it. A building to accommodate the first half of this, that being child nutrition, that being ITC, that being support staff, that being offices, it will accommodate, that land will accommodate all of those things.
Yeah, I'm just,
Because
You got a rough guess, we won't hold you to it? I mean, what the acreage is up there?
yeah, I'll give you a guess, just thinking about my farm, and I've got a 6-acre hayfield and a 9-acre hayfield, and, I look at them. I think you could get it all on there. I'm not sure I would want to try to do that if we're trying to save the front part of that old building. I think you've got the 11. I don't know that you've got a lot more than that.
Be
Just-
tight, tight 11.
It'd be pretty tight.
It'd be tight and it'd be
Pull it up on
expensive
the gov.
Very
because of tearing all that down. Maybe
The county
redoing it,
already
but-
knows.
What?
The county already knows it's gonna cost $1 million, 800,000 to tear it down.
That's-
Good thing
that's
is
the
that's
numbers I
a
have on
number we can get
demolition.
you. We can go on,
They don't want.
the county website. We can get that acreage number pretty quick.
Brandon had told us that the front of that building was a historical site.
Well, and my understanding, the only time having a historical building benefits you is in the way of tax credits.
Well, yeah, I know.
But to get those tax credits, and I've done this with a home of my own, you have to return it to the original form. That means no carpets that were not originally in the facility. that means tearing out the front entranceway to the current old hospital. That
Turn it
means
back into a
remo-
1920 hospital.
when you're finished, you will have a 1920 hospital.
But according to Brandon, we have to keep it there though, right?
There's,
We don't?
I am always subject to mistakes or misinformation, but I'm not aware that it has to be kept.
Well, that's good, cause I mean, I say tear it down, but I thought he was saying that we had to keep it.
It's leaning on the back of the building. They announced that at the meeting that we went to finalize the funds for the Tuscola edition.
I'm not suggesting that we do this,
Yeah.
but if we were to have the same group come down and look at, our current central office space, that looked at the old Clyde gym, wonder what the verdict would be.
Yeah.
Well, the county's told us it's leaning, so I don't know that we'll get a favorable answer from anyone.
Chances are it's not gonna be safe to occupy.
Well, probably not long-term.
Without being pessimistic, I mean, if that's the only option you get, it's there, but you really don't want to be married to a spot
No.
that may or may not fit exactly what you need long-term.
Well, that's what I liked about what Trevor said, is you come up with a concept that's best for the system, then you locate it. But you gotta get the concept nailed down
I
first.
agree.
I've always liked the concept of getting everything on one piece of property somewhere.
And I'm telling you, you need some breathing room, because you're gonna have some
11
big
acres, we
trucks
need
in
about
and out.
15
You're gonna have a
acres.
lot of moving pieces, and it needs to be, honestly, you're gonna need a few extra acres to make sure that it's nice. You don't wanna cram $15-20 million worth of nice buildings
Right.
in a place that don't fit.
You're exactly right.
I mean, just pure and simple.
I'll talk to you just a little bit about some of the financial ideas I had. And again, I cannot speak for you, nor can I speak for the commissioners. We have some options there that might be suitable or palatable to our commissioners. And one of the things is that I've considered, if they did not want to be tied to a project, a particular project, we could ask for seed money. I'm not going to throw an amount out there, but I have one ready for you. I'm just, again, being very careful with numbers. I want to make sure they're accurate. A pretty large sum to begin with, and then beyond that, a recurring amount. And however they might choose to do that. That way, they are not tied to the project. It gives them some latitude. It puts the responsibility on you as a board. Your decision, what you choose to do as a board. And so I will throw a rough number out there, 3 million to start, with $1 million recurring over a 10-year period. That may be too low as a start number, or it may be too high as a start number. But you're going to need some upfront money if it ends up being at the current site for demolition, or maybe it's the extra acreage at another site. And then, that money would be the responsibility of the board to manage, and what you choose to do with it is your choice. And that way the commissioners are not tied to a project, which might, again, be a little more palatable to them.
They may love it and say, here, we'll take it out of our fund balance and give it to you. But if they don't, we talked about Trevor's idea over the last couple of weeks, and it's a very reasonable approach.
Well, the truth is, it works hand in hand with funding formulas, et cetera, where they say, here's X number of funds, we know that you have this to do, now you guys go spend it, and then they just back away from the project altogether.
It's basically a capital funding formula for a decade or something, rather than you wouldn't impact current expense.
That's just being considerate of our commissioners. They get beat up on a lot of things. And, you know, I would hate to see that for them. I'd hate to see it for us, but, you know, taking ownership of the project and choosing to spend that money, making that our choice rather than theirs, and rather than them bearing the responsibility, this board choosing to bear that responsibility.
Well, I know that at least two of us on this board, and Pee Wee not very far behind, we've been talking about this for 18 years.
Yes, sir.
And we could have had it paid off and built and done by now.
I will,
You know, and the necessity is still, it's greater now than it was 18 years ago. And in a few more years, it'll be greater than it is today. And I think it's time we address it, and I think that's a palatable way to do it. We have ownership of it, and it's basically a loan. With them doing a principal payment once a year, sounds to me like. So,
Well, let me ask you a question, and you may be preparing, getting ready to do this, so if you are, just hush me up.
That's about it tonight, isn't it?
But, you know, if you look at it, that sounds like a big number. But if you look at the items that have to be replaced, if you decided not to go down that
Oh, my
road,
goodness.
you got any ideas?
well, sharing those out, and I'm gonna give you large numbers in a range, but a new gym, if we had to build back a gym for Clyde or Central Haywood High School, and the only property we have without moving the boardroom is across the river, and you're looking at 5 to 10 million for a gym. On the right there is 5 to 10 million,
You're going up 6 feet before you really start.
Before you can start.
and
That's the big thing.
Yeah, at the front.
and I can tell you that
That's the big thing. Yeah,
we have taken care of that.
Watermark right there.
We have taken care of that with 10 million. We've taken care of that project. The other thing in keeping Central available, rather than having to build this facility and turn around to the commissioners and say, oh, by the way, we messed up. Now we need an elementary school at a cost of 20 to 25 million,
instead of 4.
or two $10 million additions at Hazelwood and Junaluska. You see the numbers, how large they're getting in a short amount of time. Some might propose us using Central Elementary School. Again, my job is to put information in front of you and have you consider it and tell me which way you would like to go. That would not be my recommendation, for the simple fact that I am aware of and have been told there are confirmed 400 units, residential units coming into Haywood County. If our current space is turned into low-income housing, there's another 150 spaces proposed, so now you're at 550 units. If half of those have a single child, which is not typical, most families choose to have 2 or 3, but let's go on the low end in projections and say 275, which is half of the proposed units, have a single kid. We're beyond our occupancy at that point, and no plan for it. If Central Elementary were to be, forced upon us to be used as a central office. Not only that, to upfit Central Elementary for a central office would cost around $4 million. So when you start thinking about all those large numbers, 5 to 10 for a gym, 20 to 25 for an elementary, $4 million to retrofit an elementary school. It's a fiscally sound plan. And avoiding all that, you're looking at an integrated project that's good for our teachers, gives them a really nice facility. It supports them and shows them they are valued, and makes our efficiency even greater.
And we give them the property we vacate if they give us the money to build it.
I know you
essentially
don't,
payment for the property that we're vacating.
I know you don't have any figures, but just cost savings alone would about pay the payment for getting rid of Crabtree, Hazelwood, what it's costing us for that.
And the repairs.
Just to maintain, that's what I'm saying, just to maintain those two facilities.
Yes, sir. So I, you know, I learned a long time ago that you have to consider what you're asking of someone. And is it, you know, helpful or hurtful to them? And I really feel like this plan was completed in consideration of what we are asking of commissioners. And is it a smart move? Is what we're asking of them fair? And is it a, you know, a good, well-rounded plan that considers all of our needs? Dr. Rogers, you talked about capital money. To give you a figure, it's kind of like what's already happened. The bond that will expire and be completed and everything paid off in 2025 was a 20-year bond. It was for $25 million. That's roughly 1.2 million a year. And again, if you heard some financial figures and numbers that we could propose to the commissioners, that's about what you're asking. You know, some upfront money, a large down payment, 3 to 5, and $1 million in recurring. That's not much different than what we're currently in. And it requires that to keep your facilities up to date.
Well, I think if we're gonna move forward and present this to the commissioners, that I feel like that, as Mr. Burnett said, we need to look ahead. I would ask for everything. Bus garage, the whole 9 works. Let's do it all at one time. Because everybody's in the same consensus that it's not gonna get any cheaper. If we do it now and do it all at one whack, be done with it.
Yes, sir.
And what, there's another property we could vacate.
Yes, sir.
I think the only thing we need to decide is if we're gonna go after raw property.
And another thing is, it might work out, and I was not
Well,
here
we
when
don't-
Bethel Elementary was built, but it was my understanding that once the word got out, the landowner came to Walt and said, I've got some property.
We
that
got a
I'll
pretty
sell
good deal on that,
for
if
a
I'm
school."
remembering correctly. We'd have to go back.
And somebody in the community could step up and say, hey, I've got a piece of property I'd be willing to,
That's a good point.
you know,
Yes, sir.
you never know.
And you know,
You can always pray about it.
he was talking about the current property. Well, I think you gotta look around. I mean, you just look at Roy Hill, you look at Haywood County Hospital, you look at Haywood Community College, that whole corridor through there. Who knows what's in that area that's gonna be accessible to the roads? I mean, you gotta be able to get in and get out, and you don't wanna put it, not anything against anybody's community, but you don't wanna put it in Crusoe, for heaven's sakes, you know, or anything like that.
Crabtree.
Yeah, or Crabtree or
No
Fines
offense,
Creek or
no
whatever.
offense, Crabtree.
You want it on the Waynesville, Clyde, Canton corridor
Right.
or the 4-lane. You want it on that corridor, I believe. Really, not more than a mile or so off of that. That 4-lane.
There's one thing about Haywood County is we love our students and we love our schools. So it would not surprise me if somebody step up and say, I've got a piece of property you need to look at. That wouldn't be a shock to me at all.
Yeah.
I think again, what we've got to get before the commissioners is the concept. And for them to be able to identify that we're trying to put before them a proactive plan so that we don't have to take knee-jerk reactions down the road.
Yes, sir.
And then second is, you know, if we really value the education that we provide to our students, and that's the one question I've sat here and thought about the whole time we've talked is, how does this benefit our students? Well, if we're providing our teachers with a with 21st century place to do professional development and collaborate and all the other ancillary things that goes along with it, then we are providing for the student.
We're turning out the best teachers we can.
And we're able to attract the best teachers that we can possibly get. So, for me, this is just me talking. In concept, I'm like Chuck, I think now's the time to move this thing ahead. And it saves a lot of money in the long haul.
Somebody mentioned tonight about being at the well center possibly, for that versus the funeral home. I don't want to be in the funeral home and find out we're just now getting ready to do something about this. The way it's been going, I might be there.
That would frustrate you, wouldn't it?
It would be very frustrating.
I don't want Will or his kids fooling with this if we can help it.
Well, no, it's
Somebody's gonna have to do this again, hopefully, if the good Lord doesn't come back, But it sure would be nice if it was a long time.
Well, Dr. Putnam, with you and all that you have counseled with to come up with this is a great plan.
It is.
I mean, a well thought out plan. I
It is.
applaud you for it.
Well, Dr. Nolte, Mr. Buchanan, there have been several folks involved in this plan.
Had 2 admin assistants in there today helping him.
Making sure the PowerPoints were correct. Yes, sir. I wanted to make sure it looked nice and answered as many questions as possible.
Well, I guess my next question is, when can we sit down with the commissioners and show them this PowerPoint? And,
Soon.
I mean, we need, like you said, we need to move forward and see where we're at and what
We'll know more in a few days, I'd say.
So have we made the connection to them to,
There's been some initial contact. And I'll report back to the board anything that comes out of any type of contact with them.
I've talked to the new county manager. We'd like to go in and plant some seeds.
Yeah.
Make sure we don't go into a big meeting and get blindsided
Nor blindside them.
or blindside them.
Yeah.
We'd like to do this in a cooperative manner and plant a seed or two and make sure it's not gonna be make sure it's gonna be a positive conversation.
Absolutely.
And then shortly thereafter, get everybody together.
well, I think these guys, after talking with them, are gonna appreciate the fact that we're looking at it in the direction that we are. And we're not trying to blindside them, we're trying to communicate and
Well, and I think also this board, well, especially the 3 or 4 that's been here over 8 years, that we've always tried to keep the county commissioners in the loop. And now I'm not saying that the county's never worked with us by no means. They've always had. But this plan that Dr. Putnam putting forward is a little different than what we've had in the past. And it shows the need going forward of combining everything into an educational to make the school the best it can be. Not just or the school system, not just one entity. Yeah, just not one entity. It's gonna make everything. But once we start this process, I think the county commissioners, hopefully they will, they'll come into play. And as long as they know that it's not on their plate. I mean, and I think that's another way that to go about it. But there's always one other way, and I ain't gonna mention that tonight.
thank you.
I don't want to take up extra time, but, and we've been pretty calm and deliberate tonight. We've been downright excited about the idea that the main entrance would be where people walk into nice training areas. And then maybe if you're going to get to somebody's office, you're going over on the side hallway.
Or to the back.
Upstairs, or around back.
So what you're saying is the central focus of this building will be training and
Yeah, it's about the teachers and making sure they get the services they need and the training they need. It's, you know, like I said, we've been pretty calm and deliberate tonight, but some of this is really exciting.
I think so too.
I have my own visions of grandeur, but I see big double doors, a nice vestibule, and coming off that vestibule are some training rooms, all the technology, 21st century, just a top-notch facility for our teachers and staff to go into.
Valet parking.
I will even valet park. I will commit to that.
According to who it is, right?
That's correct.
Like Mr. Francis said too, we've been talking about this 18 years. It's, once we get moving on this, let's keep moving. Let's push it. Let's not stop and back up and think, well, we'll tackle it again another year or two later.
Most exciting thing we talked about, so talk about it.
Agree.
I do have another question, Dr. Putman. You put a lot of time and effort in this. If we do this, will he be able to do this long term? I mean, that's a lot of work. But we need to hire somebody.
Oh, we will need we'll need a
Consultant.
someone to
Liaison
manage,
or something.
to be a liaison. We've had those people.
I mean, he's gonna have a lot on his plate anyway. A lot of work.
He's got other stuff he's working
You are
on.
my new best friend. You're looking out for
Well, I'm
me,
sitting
Mr.
here
Clark.
thinking, I
Thank
don't know
you.
how you've done all this and managed your school system.
We probably need a construction manager,
Thank you. Yes.
you know, part-time.
Thank you for all your hard work.
What are you, architect?
Yeah.
Responsibilities.
Somebody went to school to do construction management, didn't they? Wasn't that their original?
Next subject.
I appreciate it. You know.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great.
Thank you. The next item here is facility use schedule, facility fee schedule, assigned to entities for using our properties. And I put this before you just for consideration. There are some things that consolidating numbers may make this a more easily read fee schedule and a more readily applied schedule. If you'll look at the second and third item over to your right, and I gave you a paper copy and also have it displayed, we have a gymnasium use charge and we have a gymnasium lighting charge. To me, it makes sense that I think it's understood that if you use our property, you are going to cut the lights on. Whatever the pleasure of the board is on this, it's $1 charge, it's a $3 charge, or it's a $2 charge, but one consolidated charge, just for efficiency's sake. One other thing to consider is that fourth item. If you look over, gymnasium heating is a charge of $18. And I want to apply this and do it as you would have me apply it. According to this fee schedule, but that's a pretty steep charge for heating. And it's not like we're cutting on the heat or cutting off the heat. The heat is there. We have to maintain minimal heat just so the pipes do not burst and that the building stays in good repair. So, but again, I throw that out for your consideration. I will follow whatever guidance you give me. And then if you'll look at the highlighted areas there, I'm not sure the discrepancy in the stadium light charges, but if you draw the short straw and you need to use Pisgah High School or Kenton Middle School, it's going to cost you $14 more an hour to use those lights than it would at Bethel Middle School or at Central Haywood High School. And maybe those should be uniform or the same.
Well, it probably does cost you more to use those than it does Bethel.
And it very well may be.
I'm sure there's a whole lot more light.
But I wanted you to take a look at that, and because this hasn't been revisited in a while, and I just wanted to put it before you, and you tell me what direction to go on these.
Is that lighting fee, is that $21 each time or per hour?
That's $21 per hour.
And I know you probably, I know Bethel Youth is the only one that ever uses the lights at Bethel. And when I was involved up there, we paid the electric bill, pretty much. Does that $21 an hour cover, you have any idea if it covered the electric bill for those lights?
I do not. I can get you numbers for that. And I imagine it's probably higher than that. But Bethel Youth did used to pay, as did Canton Little League, pay utility bills at some of our properties. To the best of my knowledge, those arrangements have all been dissolved. The last one being at a property at Meadowbrook. I believe Canton Little League was paying an electric bill on a concession stand near the baseball field or softball field on the back property, which they had not even used in several years, as well as a bill at North Canton Elementary. It was a good bit more to pay those utility bills versus what we charge in usage.
I think we came up with this schedule originally, the point was to get it all under our, we wanted to pay all the utilities and then charge them an hourly fee that would be more equitable to everybody, cause over in Bethel, they were doing all kinds of stuff.
And the other
Paying a
thing,
lot of stuff, and over in Waynesville somewhere, not that they weren't, but just saying, for example, other locations weren't doing what Bethel was doing. We wanted it to be more fair. That was the flavor of it.
That was the main point, yeah, and plus then some people were saying, well, we did this for the schools, why else should we have to pay that?
Mowing this.
You know, they were trying to barter some fees out.
A lot of barter work going on.
And I think
It's still
Tracy went in and did a study on every facility, usage of watts and different things, and came up with that fee schedule, I think, to begin with, and then we took a percentage of what the actual costs were to come up with the fee schedule. I know that may still be out there somewhere.
That was a lot of it, and then like I say, Dr. Putnam, we did mention this some in the policy, cause it's tied to the policy about
and when we,
fee usage and.
and when we did do
Not
it,
been
the
visited.
main thing is we didn't want to put our youth groups out of business.
Right.
No.
You know, we didn't want to charge. I mean, at first it was coming in way expensive. And we worked with it and got it where we felt like it was.
I'll give you an example on that. Most of our youth teams, and I'm just talking in round numbers here, averages, they pay about $1,500 to $1,800, and that's with only the use fee and the lighting being applied. If you calculate that heat at $18 an hour, so they've been being charged for 3, and you heard it was like around $1,500. If you apply that heating charge, it's going to be way up there. And it's not up to me to determine, how to apply these fees. This is your fee schedule, and I'll apply it as you tell me. But the heating fee has not been being assessed.
Do y'all have
Just
recommendations
honest.
on changes?
I would recommend dropping the heating fee. And the reason I would recommend that, because of what Mr. Henson just said, it's going to make, the costs are going to go up astronomically for our youth leagues. We are already currently heating. Might it kick in, motion censored in some places? A little bit extra, yes, but most of our gyms set resting at 60, 65 on the weekend. By the time you get body heat in there, it's going to warm up nicely to 70, and there's not a lot of additional heat being used. My recommendation would be to drop the heating fee.
If you started
You could-
charging that, you're talking about this boardroom be full of folks complaining about that. I mean, you know.
I don't think our youth programs could afford it,
Well, you
just to be
figure,
honest.
you figure they're there from 10 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, most of the time.
That's just on Saturday.
That's on Saturday.
And
That's
then
just a
every
Saturday.
night too.
They're also taxpayers.
Well, the thing that I'm sitting here thinking, and, you know, and I coached youth basketball a long time ago and was a principal at a couple places where they used the gym. I think our practice and our fee scale needs to be the same, and we're not following the fee scale, because we're not charging that $18.
I say take it off of there and then combine that to $3 and be done with it. That'd be my recommendation, and if it takes.
And
board
I
action
mean,
to do it.
anything else that you see that we need to address, bring
Could you do like a?
to the meeting for a vote. I mean,
Okay.
this will go through finance first,
Go through finance.
and then
I just wanted to see if it was,
Do something
okay.
to help our youth sports, get our children involved in things outside.
Well, by not charging $18, we're already doing something, but let's take it off there so we don't
Yeah.
imply that we're doing it. you know?
If for instance, you shouldn't have any rule or any policy or any fee schedule if you're not gonna follow it, for the reason you're not needing to follow it, get it off and clean it up and then get what's on there and then follow what it is and be consistent with it, and then you'll be, I mean, I think we're all above board when we do that.
I think just clean it up and lay it out here and let's approve it.
and
Okay.
I'm not sure. Like I said, I won't say I'm positive, but I'm almost certain that Bethel Youth is the only one that even plays night games anymore. I think most everybody's gone to
Football.
and football.
Yeah, Bethel's.
Have gone to day games. And the
Probably.
The people in Bethel don't want, they're hard-headed, they don't want
Kid.
go to midday games for some reason.
Well, you got work to do during the day, you gotta.
Well, I know
it.
it. I always liked them
Best
evenings,
7 years of my life, I'm just telling you.
especially in the
12.
mid-August. The
community.
All right, so I will put together some recommended fee schedule. I just did not want to do that without having brought it before you first.
That's good.
And any recommendations you have, you know, you get home, you go, I wished I'd have thought to tell him, just call me, I'll be glad to incorporate that into the fee schedule.
Sounds good.
And I believe that's all I have. I'm gonna shut up for the first time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor.
I don't have topic updates, other than I put that on there unless there was something you all wanted to talk about. I did lay, at your spot, the, written summary from, Todd on the wrestling. The thing that I would add to that, I had obviously had several conversations with him and, some of his people about that. He likes that coach. He thinks that fella knows wrestling. He's not really worked in a school setting like ours before. He thinks a lot of it is just new guy, didn't know who to ask, and then maybe different people not always following through on things they talked about. We had a key, we didn't have a key, we had a key, we didn't know which room it went to. I'm supposed to get with him and show him where the showers are, that kind of stuff. But Todd worked on that really, really hard. And then, I guess other topics before we talk about the Gideons, which you all asked to be on the schedule for you all to talk about that. I'll just start that discussion. You know, I'm a ordained Baptist deacon. I know I don't act like it sometimes. I've taught Sunday school for decades. And I do it with old people now who know the Bible, so I think this can be pretty challenging. I would love to be able to distribute the Bible. I am concerned about, you know, what other doors does that open? And is it legal in the first place? You know, from a personal perspective, I'd love to do it. I don't know the answers as to whether or not it can be pulled off. So
We have
there's my contribution that doesn't
There
help.
is other counties around us that are doing it. Jackson,
Well, let me jump in, okay?
Oh my gosh, here's a lawyer, okay.
I'm gonna tell you right up front, this is one of those issues you have to put your personal belief behind and say you're gonna follow the law, okay? You do what the law is. You cannot accommodate the
cases on the Gideons many years ago. It started off, oh gosh, I think in the 80s, 90s. And they used to. I remember when I was in school, I got my first Gideon Bible in the 5th grade, and they limited it. And the Gideons, they were denied being able to come into schools and give Bibles out. That limited to where they had to be on. You had Mr. Haynes, I believe, say in one of his sidewalk handouts, they can hand out whatever they want on the public street. Okay, near the school. They cannot. The only way you have them come into the school is a very limited way. You would have to change essentially your policy. We are and have been for years, a closed forum district. Let me tell you what that means. It's opposite of an open forum.
There's the lawyer's answer.
Closed forum system. If you allow a group to come in, be it the Gideons or any other group, you are an open forum system. You have to let everybody, if you let one group in, you have to let all in, okay? And in regard to, and by that I mean, if you let the Gideons distribute material, well, they can't distribute, first off, they cannot distribute. No one can distribute religious, political, social, pamphlets, stuff in the classroom, etc. You are limited to times and locations in the system. But if you let one group come in, you let the Gideons come in, you also let all religious groups come in. Be they Jewish, Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, atheists, Wiccans, pagans. You have to also open it up to political groups, Republican, Democrat.
Can't have that. Can't have Republicans
Yeah.
and Democrats.
You have to open it up to social issues, be it homosexuality, heterosexual, LGBT groups, anyone. We have been a closed forum for a long, long time. Even if you do decide to be an open forum, say, for example, the Gideons, what some of the joining school districts do, you can do this. And it actually goes back to a case out of, some of the leading cases, it's our 4th Circuit, and there was a case out of West Virginia. I just want to hand this to you. Most of these handouts I brought to you are old, because this has been the law for about since 1999, 2000. Okay? First thing I want to give you this is specifically Bible distribution in public schools. This is just an old.
I'll make you a copy.
Essentially, if you're going to, you can make.
We're done.
I'm going down some head notes here. You can make it this case came out of West Virginia. It's called the Peak case, okay? You can make Bibles available, but you can't distribute them. So you cannot go in the classroom and say, I'm a Gideon, here's a Bible, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, I can't do this, okay? You have to be absolutely neutral in everything you do. You cannot say we're for this, against this. You even have to go to the point of saying it's not conventionalism. There be no coercion to take a Bible. In other words, you can't have someone standing at the table saying, take one of these Bibles. You can have to have equal access, and then again, a brief discussion about open. I'm gonna give all this to you, and y'all can read it at your leisure. But what you can do, and the Gideons can do this, they can bring a table and they can put it in a student area. It could be in the, outside the central office, it can be in the courtyard, it can be anywhere. And they can put the Bibles on there, but you also have to put a placard, you can say free, but you also have to put a placard saying, this is not
Sponsored by the.
sponsored by the school system, we're not endorsing this whatsoever, okay? They can do that. But if you open it up, you open it up to everybody. And so I just ask you to think about that, if you decide to do this, that if a Muslim group comes, or a pagan group comes, or a Wiccan group comes, and trust me, they will come, okay? I've dealt with them.
Had it before.
I always go back to the classic story when I was mayor in Canton. We put up that old, we had a mural, Churches of Canton. First thing we got was a request from a pagan group out of, Canton, they want to do their fall solstice meeting, they want to do it right in front of the church mural. Fortunately, it was not owned by, the parking lot wasn't owned by the town, and, we talked to the legislature, Lisa to the town, says, no, I don't want it in my parking lot, so we had to give her a place, we did it beside the Colonial Theater down there. No one knew what was going on, they thought it was just basically an adult Halloween party, that it was on the night of Halloween, but they will come. I'll give this to you, but they can do that, but you can't, it has to be, there are very strict rules, okay? I brought a couple of other things to you, because this has been an issue, this is an overall issue on distribution of non-school material to students. This is an older pamphlet, and also, if you really want to read Let Us Pray, new legal guidance on prayer at board meetings, and you'll see this was October 2017. This is the latest thing, I'm going to talk about that with y'all too. So, in regard to that issue, if y'all want to pursue the idea of working with the Gideons, I suggest you refer this to your policy committee, because you're gonna have to develop a policy that says any religious group, and this is how it's gonna be limited, and then you're gonna also have to open it up to the political and, social issues coming, because we have been for years a closed system.
Not since what, the nineties or
Since this is not the first time this issue.
the early well, I know, but I mean,
Yeah.
we've been a closed system since what, the early nineties or something like that?
I'm gonna give this information to you. I think before you make any decision, even before you decide to recommend it to the policy, you read this and talk. I do know that there's a couple of schools, Madison County does the table, and they have to bring, and then and the other thing, that they can leave it for a day, okay? You have some latitude, you can say, all groups, everybody, bring the material one day, okay? You can put it in the students can walk around, you know, all one, or you can say, you're entitled to 1 day per year, and bring your material. As long as you're open to everybody, and it's out there. So it's a very.
And is there an age deal like?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, because I just don't know that the elementary kid's gonna have the wherewithal to know what's.
So I will tell you specifically.
Was just fifth
You cannot
grade.
even do that in the elementary school. You have to say, the only way you can do that is in the case law says a secondary school, okay? You can put stuff out in a secondary school, but secondary, level kids are supposed to have the wherewithal to think about it and make judgment and decide what they want to do. First grade, you know, elementary schools do not have it. Now, I will tell you, there is a mixed, decision on whether you can do it even at the table in, middle school, okay? Some say yes, some say no, the courts have not said. The statute says secondary, elementary. Is it middle school, secondary, or elementary? All right? That's what it says.
As I was reading through some of this in preparation, I believe it's a ruling by Fourth Circuit Court,
They consider elementary to be 1 through 8.
It typically is, that's the definition. We don't use that locally for staffing purposes, cause we don't want a supervisor going K-8 and one going, 9, 12, but yeah, the standard educational definition is secondary is where you're earning high school credits, and even though you have a few eighth graders do it, secondary is typically considered high school.
So when I'm giving this information to you, please look at it, but I think your first decision is, are we going to be an open forum district or are we going to be a closed?
Okay, you're not saying that we can stay closed if we do the table deal.
No, once you do that,
No,
you're
you
open.
become open.
You're open.
You're open then.
But you can limit it to 1 day a year or
You can
whatever.
limit it to 1 day a year, or you can limit it to the location. But you're not, for example, let me just give you can say, we're gonna allow this group to come. But you can put your stuff out on a table, but you have to leave. And on each table, you say the school district does not support or endorse this is here. And you could theoretically have a table of Gideons, table of Jehovah's Witnesses, table of Mormons, table of pagans, table of atheists. Students just come by and pick up whatever they wanna pick up.
I worry about the sexual preferences stuff myself,
We,
at an age group,
It's all
too young.
there.
how much levity do we have, with our student interest groups
Student interest groups is a different thing. Okay?
distributing? And we have all varieties of those too.
Now we do.
We have Bible clubs and FCA and Youth for Christ and Heels of Faith, but we also have the diversity club. How much levity do they have if it's the kids?
You've got a whole.
Damn, nobody's gonna follow up with these kids.
Student-led, just like meet me at the.
If they're not gonna walk across the street,
Student-led,
neighbor to buy,
all,
why you wanna give them to
whether
them?
it's FCA, as you said, an LBGT group, an anti-bullying group,
Wouldn't do it.
because that's falling into different,
Say
freedom
no.
for students as far as to express themselves, what they like, and so here you have an outside group coming in. Remember, we have dealt years and years and years, and every school deals with it. Every group wants to get into the school system, to promulgate their position, right, wrong, or indifferent, okay? And unfortunately, there's some that, that I think are terrible. You let the ones you think are good come in, you gotta let the terrible ones come in. And, so it's a very tough decision to make. I think the first thing you need to decide and give it some real thought, and I know y'all do, you're a good board, but you gotta say, are we gonna be an open or a closed forum district, okay?
Y'all would not believe what we screen already. Dr. Garrett did it before me, and I'm sure people before her, and I do, Brooke can tell you, I do some every day of stuff that we distribute, and most of it's fine. Most of it's,
like businesses want to,
yeah, most of it's fine, but every
Love their
day
business.
we're screening stuff.
you just can't do it.
Now, one thing, so Madison County does, they do it 1 day per year, and they'll have their table there. North Buncombe community, because I think they have like a community night, okay? And they say, let everybody bring anything you want, parents can come, teachers can come, students can come, they're gonna have, everybody that has any type of, thing they wanna put out can be there. I think that's once a year, and that meets their requirement as far as being an open district. I mean, up that Buncombe County District, whatever that is, North Buncombe, not Buncombe's whole. So each school can do it differently, but they have addressed the issue of being open. If they're gonna be open, they let everybody come. They do it like at night and have a big, session. We've never done that, but, this is not the first time that we have had to deal with, religious issues. And I told, as I've said before, I think, I'm trying to think of the last issue we had, was from the Wisconsin-based, Freedom Against Religion. and they were upset about something. And I always felt I was doing the right thing, because I'd be getting facts and everybody quoting, you don't know what you're talking about, you're the dumbest lawyer it's ever been. And on 2 minutes later, I'd be getting facts from the other group who was quoting the other side, I said, you're the dumbest lawyer I've ever seen, you know, so I was right in the middle, saying, no, because we really have to walk a very narrow path. If you fall off, if you wander off the path, then you get sued. And I want to bring something else to your attention while we're on this. There was a recent case, and I think this does need to, we need to talk about this, out of Salisbury, the Wayne County case, which just recently came talking about, prayer at, board meetings. I think we've been okay at this point, but I think we need to have a real discussion on, give you this case, there's been some recent decisions on that, okay? And to show you that it does have an effect, this is an article that comes out of the Salisbury paper where the Wayne County Commissioners just had to pay the ACLU $285,000 for their attorney's fees for pulling the case all the way up to the Supreme Court and back. Now, they did something differently than what we did. This is what we stopped this years ago. They were talking a lot more about all the commissioners were giving prayers, but they were much more oriented to the Christian faith than the general, Jimmy, like you do. Even, I think, I just want y'all to read these. This is the case that they just decided, and then this is the county commissioners had to pay, and county commissioners had. This is what I was talking about. You always have groups want to come in and tell you what to do. The commissioners represented by the National Center for Life and Liberty, and then you had the ACLU on the other side. So they were just prodding each other all over. Let me give you these. This is the. Take some time, when you don't have anything else to do with this, you'll see what the Rowan County Commissioners were doing, what they said you could still do prayers, but general, what they're doing is saying, leaning more towards having volunteers come in from the community, so you get a diverse opinion of all the churches coming in, not just one.
Is that, well, you're talking to the board now, I'll just be quiet.
So I just want to give those to you. So, summarize.
What's your, yeah, that's what I was gonna say, what's the summary for the board meeting stuff?
The summary on the prayers.
For board meetings?
I want you to read that case, and there's some examples.
It's gonna make me read it.
Yeah, there's what the county commissioners were doing, how they were doing it. Basically, you can have prayer, but it has to be very general in nature, and, but you still can do it, but it's limited. But as regard to the request of the Gideons, I'm sorry, you just can't do it. And I think if you want to pursue this further, then, I think you need to refer it to the policy committee and have some good discussions with them, and an open forum. They will come.
Can you go back and tell us again about student organizations and what they're allowed to do and don't do and?
Let's just take, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Fellowship of Christian Athletes is you have a school, a teacher sponsor, but they can do, students can talk one-on-one to students. Students can ask people to attend a meeting. They can handle their meetings however they want to. They can have prayer. Again, it's because this is coming from the students, not from some outside force, okay?
Could the students hand out Bibles to other students?
Probably. I think it all depends on circumstances and time and things like that. I think.
Well, but I think I think you can, but that's where you don't get into, a kid can hand out Bibles, but then the next kid that wants to hand out a Quran can also. See, that's where the kids have the freedom to do what they want to. We've obviously seen that last year. They can walk out and not get in trouble. But if a kid, how my understanding is, now I'm not a lawyer, a kid can do what they want to as long as, how our policy reads, as long as it is not, what is the word?
Interfering with.
Disruptive to instructional time.
And that is always.
That's on an individual student basis.
That's on a group, individual, student group, as long as it is not
Always
dis-
a factual, fact
Right.
by fact situation. It's
Right.
difficult to determine.
Here's the thing though.
So,
Say, we're looking at fellowship Christian athletes. And say I'm a student involved in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. As a student-led organization, at our weekly meetings, monthly meetings, annual meetings, daily meetings, should our organization decide to have such. I have the ability, as the leader of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, to invite in guest speakers, to speak to our group.
That's right. To your members or prospective
Your
members.
or prospective members of my group.
Volunteer to come on their own.
As the leader of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, I could set up a night event where we had a celebration. The guest speakers are the Gideons, and they are gonna have Bibles available for anybody that wants to take them. We've not opened up our forum. We're still closed forum.
Yeah, you could do that at an event like Fields of Faith.
Exactly. You can do all of those things within that.
You could do it
I'm
at that.
saying that you're not
It's just
going-
like, it's just like meeting at the poll.
Yeah.
You can invite, you can invite your classmates to say, we're gonna do this, meet me at the poll, okay? And you can do it. Now, where we have gotten, where we've sort of had to watch things is when first, second, third graders are out there. Now, realistically, first, second, third graders have the ability to organize that and lead that on, generally not. So you gotta watch teachers and everybody else coming in and doing it. So, but no, oh, you're right. You can do that. I mean, and it's just like a nursing hospital care club, future nurses, farmers, inviting people to come in and speak, but it's in, you can invite them to come and say it's here.
Now, should that information get out, get widespread, you'll probably will have some work to do, because there will be groups come against even the student-led organization. But
Bobby, I don't think I would have any trouble defending if the Fellowship of Christian Athletes went out and says, hey, we're meeting not on school facilities, and, cause we now allow all groups to come use school facilities.
Yeah,
That
we-
was opened up.
Yeah, we have a pretty good handle on, this is the diversity club meeting time, and they may even get them a school bus and all go to a meeting in Asheville, or FCA's meeting, or the chess club, or you name it, their meeting. We have a pretty good handle on controlling that, because if an individual wants to come in and do that, you go, we don't have a club for that.
Well, let me tell you how things have
Yeah.
changed. When I started 35 years ago, it was the law and the policy that we did not let any groups outside school use facilities except sports clubs, okay? We started getting, and a lot of churches started, the reform going to use school facilities. Said, no, you can't, okay? Well, the law changed, the Equal Access Act, whatever was passed. The school system can adopt, say, we'll let anybody in, and we adopted, say, let churches in, and other groups have come in, and it has not been a problem, okay? But that is it's once you open up for one, you open up for all. And but we have had issues with all sorts of groups trying to get into the school information law. So, I mean, if the Gideons would like to do that, there's not a thing wrong with them going to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. You wanna call me, we'll pass out Bibles.
well, and there's it immediately takes me to a place. As I ponder through this, it immediately
takes me to a place, and all of a sudden I'm standing up on Mount Carmel in Israel looking over the Jezreel Valley. And I think about Elijah as he was summoned to that mountain, and they summoned Elijah, and he summoned the prophets of Baal and all the prophets of the groves, 400 prophets of the groves. And Elijah challenged him, said, I'll tell you what we're going to do here. We're going to build an altar. We're going to put the wood on it. We're going to prepare the bullet and lay it out here. And we're just going to see which God shows up. And of course, the prophets of Baal prepared the bullet and laid it there. And they began to cry. And it became about noonday, the Bible says. And they hadn't seen any fire yet. And Elijah began to prod him a little bit and said, well, maybe he's on vacation. Maybe he's asleep. Maybe he needs to holler a little louder. And they began to holler and dance and cut themselves and all kinds of other stuff.
I like it.
But finally, to no avail. At the time of sacrifice, which was the sixth hour, Elijah called upon his God, my God. The fire fell from heaven, and he made it difficult. He poured the water.
The water on it.
Consumed the water, consumed the fire, and consumed the rocks.
I remember that.
So there's a part of me that says, a big part of me that says, you know, let's just see which God shows up. I've got a lot of faith in mine.
Well,
I agree.
And consume the prophets.
if you open it up, just understand that your phone's not gonna be ringing.
It's all right. Let it ring.
Well, let's think about it just a minute. I just told Jimmy, the only people that come to my house last year is Jehovah's Witnesses. We got over 100 churches in this county. Those guys come to me at Ingalls and corner me up. And I'll tell you, just like I told them, if you want to give your neighbor a Bible, walk across the street, knock on their door, and hand them a Bible. This is not the platform. We were not voted for this. I feel the same way y'all do. I'm conflicted. But he's telling you every way possible, don't do this. Because they're not doing it now. They're not knocking on doors. But the Jehovah's Witnesses are. The Wiccas will. All these other groups will beat your kids. They will be there. They'll be lined up waiting. They won't be Christians lined up because they're not lined up now. But they will. Those other groups will be lined up down the parking lots. He's telling you don't open this door. I'm telling you don't open
We're
this
talking
door.
about student groups now.
Yeah.
You're preaching to the choir. They're already got Bibles.
You don't need to do anything.
FCA already has Bibles.
You don't need to do anything with the student groups other than I have the principals remind the student.
They need to,
if they want
they need to invite their friends to church.
The community,
You
they can get them.
Getting us to the right resources, the right places to make the offer. What's available, what resources are available.
Sure. No, I mean, I know, I love you guys, and I know you're very passionate, but I'm just afraid of what's gonna happen.
You don't need to do anything with the student groups. They're already up and running and passing out materials.
And you've got a wide range of them in these schools.
I'm conflicted on it.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, when there was the 450 prophets of Baal, 400 prophets of the Grove standing up there on Mount Carmel, and Ronnie, you stood there.
I know it's awesome.
And there stood Elijah. I'm tempted to believe that there's 850 people scared and one that wasn't.
I mean, I agree. I know all y'all are very passionate, and I believe you, and I love you, and I know you're right. But you got to.
And I'm not questioning your heart at all, Ron.
No, I'm not.
I know.
I'm not saying that.
I
I
know
just
what
think
you're
you
saying.
need to think about
You're looking at protecting the students, and I am too. I just believe with all my
guys
heart.
live- you
Listen to
live
me.
it,
Let me
you
say
live
one
it,
thing.
you
I
live
believe
it.
with all my heart. One of our jobs is to protect the students. But I'm going to tell you, there's one that can do a better job protecting the students than we can. His name's God.
Amen. I don't disagree with you. I agree with you 100%. You guys live it. You guys love it. I believe you. But this is not what we're here for. I'm sorry.
I say that we need to think about it, progress slowly with it, pray over it, read the materials that our attorney's given us.
There goes Saturday.
Well, you know,
We talk about a lot of things in concept, but I do wanna say one thing.
Also, after I heard the kid speak, I turned to Jason Hines. I turned to Jason Hines, okay, I'm getting ready to be the boogeyman again.
yeah.
Well, we know you're just
Same
doing your
thing I-
job.
I'll tell you, the same thing I've told every one of you, there are times that it's in this board's best interest, I take, coals are heaped on my head, this is one of those times. Okay, I need to earn my money and say, the lawyer said, and I'm telling him, I'm just saying exactly, this is not, think long and hard about this. That's part of my job. The lawyer says we can't do this, well, I'm telling you, I can't do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah, I'm
You
gonna-
absolutely cannot do from the fifth, handout Bibles from the fifth grade through high school. The only thing you could possibly do is pass a policy about open forum, get some guidelines on this table, they can pass things, and that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
If you do, then you're gonna have problems, because you're gonna have everybody putting stuff out.
And if I could just summarize the decision-making process, if you're gonna leave it a closed forum, you don't have to do anything. If you're gonna pray about it and discuss it and open the forum, then you need to come back as a group and give us direction to do that. If you're going to rely on student interest groups, you don't have to do anything. Because those groups can get materials from whomever they want. I just want to try to categorize it that way.
Well, I still got another question. I'm not gonna preach, it's really a question. How is it that, and the reason I'm asking is I really don't know the answer to this. How is it that you go to a ball game at, say, Jackson County? Or a ball game at, you go play Cherokee? That they have a student-led group that'll open that ball game in prayer. And we can't.
It would, I mean, the only way I can answer to you is that no one has complained. Okay?
Well, I don't want to cause them any trouble, but
And, you know, maybe a little bit different, I mean, no one's complaining, okay? I know of a school district, I'm not gonna name it, that is clearly violating the law, okay? And all they need to do is just have somebody complain. And that'll be it, okay? And it'll happen. I know, it's just the time that somebody will come forward and say, the question then is, are the leaders of that community, and by that I mean the board members and the county commissioners, who are instructed and swore to follow the law, are they ignoring the law? Which is worse? Are you gonna sit there and say, as long as nobody complains, we do it, or are you gonna say, we can't do that? Look, I'm gonna tell you something, I went to a, this is probably 15, 20 years ago, I went to a service where one of our core groups was taking part in a church service. And I had to come back and I told the superintendent at that time, I says, look, I was there voluntarily, I was there because I wanted to go see the Christmas program at the church. But if our choral group, and I'm not gonna say who it was and when it was, does that again, they were clearly in violation of the law last night. If somebody finds out about it, there's no way we could possibly. Now, it didn't make it paper, didn't make the press, didn't make anything else. I couldn't sit there and say, well, I'm obligated to protect the board to say, this is okay, because it wasn't okay. It was a nice program, but it was clearly illegal. And I told the superintendent it didn't happen again. That's 20-some years ago.
So to answer Bobby's question, though, if they are, and I don't know, just say if they're Fellowship of Christian Athletes or their leaders are taking turns, or the president of that is saying the prayer before a football game or a basketball game. Is that legal or illegal?
Most things that are student-led, that are not organized, are okay, all right? For example, you saw football players come out, they can go down the field and kneel and pray before a game. It's personal student-athlete's decision. It's not led by the coach, it's not led by anybody, okay? They can do that. It's a difficult thing to oftentimes, tell them what the facts are, but if you, it's like, it's hard to, I'm trying to answer your question, I'm sort of floundering here, but if, for example.
You're not a good tap dancer, Pat, but go ahead.
If you're saying, all right, if you're saying that there's a group of kids in the stand that say, you know, before the game, they wanna pray, they can pray. But the question is, who organized it? You know, is it really a student-led, voluntary thing they wanna do, or is it being caused by some outside force?
So if the FCA president at Tuscola or Pisgah walked into this boardroom and petitioned us to allow them to say the invocation at Friday night football games,
I'm probably gonna tell you can't do that.
You'd be better off if they petitioned the principal. It still would be touchy, because you're using the microphone and the electricity. Yeah.
All right, and.
but it's getting more and more readdressed.
Yeah.
You know, even the teaching of Bible classes in high schools. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
talking about current events, that's today's newspaper.
Yeah.
And, if I'm not mistaken, Florida, and now Virginia, or West Virginia one, or both have
But,
allowed it.
you know, I didn't.
We can have Bible history, and we can also have Bible literature. And we have found teachers with the license and scheduled the classes, and unfortunately didn't have a lot of people sign up for them. We can have a history course elective based upon the Bible, and we can have a literature course, and it's a study of the literature or the study of the history.
But Bob, it says, you know, if.
But we don't have a lot of kids sign up for
Football games
them.
has just been, I mean, that's clear, you can't do it. And if a student and a group of students just simultaneously do it, but here again, how many people are gonna simultaneously say the same prayer at the same time in the same location? And who's doing it? You know,
If you were, as an announcer, said, all right, we're gonna have a moment of silence, and it's implied that you
that's right.
are doing it because the students are gonna do their prayer now, you've orchestrated that.
And,
You've
you know,
facilitated that.
there was an issue, there was a couple of issues up at, Tuscola 2 or 3 years ago. During the moment of silence, people started saying the Lord's Prayer.
They did. I might have
For
said
a
it
while,
with them.
and of course, call comes to me and said, what can we do about it? And I said, well, at this point in time, don't do anything, you know, see what happens, you know, if it continues on and somebody's, I don't know if it's still going on or not, but I was getting complaints about that.
Yep.
Why don't you, I said, well, let's just see, let's not lose our heads over this, and let's see if it continues on and what's behind it, and go from there. So I don't think Ann at that point in time did anything. We just said, let's see what happens. And if it got to the point of being it was an organized, generally accepted thing, then we may have had to do something about it, but just a lot.
So to get back to the board prayer, not too long ago, you told us that, in other words, if Mr. Francis called on me to pray, and I prayed in Jesus' name, that it was my individual right to do that. Now it's changed and we couldn't. We couldn't?
Maybe one couldn't, no, you cannot,
As far as my personal belief, and I'm praying,
yeah, you can't do that, because it's not that you're praying for yourself, you're praying for the board.
Praying for the board, yeah, you can't.
And you can't do that. You cannot say,
Wouldn't one of these people have to complain that I'm not praying for them?
Nope, it'd be less than the audience.
Cause we're not praying for them people, we're praying for this board.
I know, but you're praying for, as long as you're asking, when you read that case, you'll see the thinking of the courts on it. When you begin a session of a legislative body, it is understanding that we are, this is more above than just mundane life. There's nothing wrong with calling on a higher spirit, or just higher guidance, or something that's more than just everyday arguments of life and things you do, okay? And that it is important to think about things and to be wise and just and do things. But but if you start putting one religion over another, for example, say, in Jesus' name, that's truly saying this is a Christian prayer. One of the things I got from that case was they were saying, well, all the commissioners of Rowan County are Christian. So you're not having any other faiths addressed. Just because there's nobody who, if you got a board entirely made up of Christians, is going to say a Christian prayer. And there, you'll see a reference to a case of the town of Greece. I think what they do is they just have volunteers in the community come by, and they'd have a Christian volunteer, a Baha'i religion would do it, a Jewish person would come, they just volunteer. So it all goes back to we can't establish one religion over another. And are you intentionally doing it, or are you just de facto doing it? If you're just doing it by omission, like not taking care of something. If we know that at a ball game that we're not supposed to be having prayer, and we say with a nod and a wink and say, well, that's okay, we're going to go back. We're not following what we're supposed to be doing. Okay? As a board.
Can I ask an admin question? I probably shouldn't ask. So, we have a birthday party every now and then and that kind of stuff for someone in the office, or, we'll have a Christmas lunch, and we almost always pray before we eat. What are the rules there? Just us girls,
There's nothing wrong before this. There's not a thing wrong with me before this board meeting coming and say, oh yeah, the board's gonna jump me tonight. Almighty Lord help me. Not a thing wrong with that. And there's not a thing wrong with me and Jason Hunt saying, Jason, let's pray together here just a minute. But we're not doing it out to the general public, unless anybody doing it.
So you think we're okay if it's just the 12 of us and we're eating and we go, hey,
They're not coercing anybody.
Mark or Jeff or, I hate to tell on the principals, but, we're recorded. They had their meeting the other day and one of the ladies prayed. Heaven forbid. But it was voluntary.
It's voluntary, but again, the biggest thing is also remember this.
It was a closed group, though.
But it's also our students present.
No,
The closer you,
No.
the time that when you have students.
they weren't.
Public or students?
When you have students there in a captured environment, that's when you have a problem.
So it's okay to pray, but not okay to pray to God. Is that?
You pray to God. I think Jimmy's fine. He says, pray to God,
Okay.
Almighty Father, divine, but just, you can't.
You can't call him Jesus Christ.
Just, I tell you what.
If
read
you
that
do and
case.
nobody hears it, then that's.
The last thing is, read that Rowan County case, and don't do what the Rowan County case.
Does it matter if we're in open session or not when we do that? Or if there's, could you pray before the meeting, before, you actually started the meeting?
I would
Because you're not around students.
Yeah.
You're not around students or the
Not around
public.
students, you're not.
And
You
it-
can't do
and-
it in session.
Yeah, but before,
Dismiss session. Yeah,
or do it before, and then, now I call the meeting to order?
That's the good part about this conversation. Nobody ever has. I know sometimes you split hairs. Sometimes you don't. To drive down to where You understand where people are
And
thinking?
the worst thing is you don't always know, because each situation's
It's
different.
different.
Well, I think
It's trouble.
if nothing else, we've got a good dialogue going tonight. We've made Pat earn his money a little bit tonight. Pray about it. But I think that, you know, it's a work,
Before you pass.
this is a work session and we've done some work on this. I think this is gonna be a longer discussion than what.
We can add it to another work session.
Well, I think that, again, we need to, proceed diligently, cautiously, because, I mean, we were elected to uphold the Constitution, number one, uphold the laws of the land, good, bad, or otherwise. We've also taken a oath of office for that. We've also, all of us here, I think, are convicted in our beliefs, and we don't want to leave them at the door when we walk in here. And
It's not, it's a
no, and that's the reason I say this is a discussion that is going to have to be deliberate and carefully thought out. And this isn't our first rodeo on this either.
No, let me just say again. If you wanna do what, do it. She's cautious, you do it again. You'll have to make it possible.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Scott.